Hello and welcome to Witchcraft UK Limited. My name's Steve Close. I'm the director and founder of Witchcraft UK. Now in this video today I want to break it down into several sections. But one of the questions I get asked quite a lot coming from Facebook and general email questions is, how do I get started in witchcraft? Or where do I begin? What book do I use? Where do I look? And this is really quite a tricky question to answer directly. One of the things which I did about 6 months ago was I tried to set up some online courses to do with paganism and witchcraft. But I soon found by doing that it's actually very, very difficult to try and be non-biased or non-judgmental based on your own personal beliefs. And when I was looking back and I was writing various articles, it soon dawned on me that I'm trying to push or explain my own personal views, my own personal beliefs into a system, and really that's not the right way of doing it. So I decided to bin that, and even though we're going to be setting up courses and workshops which are just a general model, what we want to do is try and explain how do you get started out really. The first thing to understand more than anything else is, are witchcraft and paganism the same thing? And the answer to that is no, although they are very, very similar. And based on a lot of traditions and a lot of beliefs out there which come under paganism, witchcraft is really a massive part of it. The two get very blurred around the edges. Certain things which you do in witchcraft will relate to the tradition you believe in terms of paganism, and vice versa. For somebody starting out, it can be very, very difficult. It can be a right muddle to try and work your way through it. But the concept is really, and what the beauty is when we look at paganism and witchcraft, we'll just use the terms together at the moment. Unlike a lot of mainstream religions which are out there, such as Christianity, they have the Bible, such as the Muslim religions, which have the Quran and stuff like this, we do not have one set book which tells you how you should think, what you should do, what to do in certain circumstances. Nothing like that exists. So really, let's break the two down and have a look at what they are. First of all, paganism. What actually is paganism? Well, if you look paganism up in an online dictionary, in the Oxford Dictionary or stuff like that, what you'll read is quite degrading when you first read it at first. It sort of shuns people of pagan beliefs, of pagan origins, and it can be quite rude when you read through it. But actually they've got it quite right, even though it hasn't been very well written. The best way to really look at paganism is the spiritual side. It is your religious side, it's your belief side. And within paganism, you've got many, many different traditions. Now, in terms of a tradition, what basically a tradition is, it does become a little bit like a mainstream religion in that most traditions will have books and stuff and information on what to do within that tradition. For example, a fairly recently new tradition on the block, which has really gone quite mainstream now, is Wicca. Now a lot of people get confused and say Wicca and witchcraft are the same thing, or Wicca is the new name for witchcraft, which is incorrect. Wicca is not. Wicca is a tradition or a religion within paganism itself. It'd be impossible really to try and keep the video short if I was to try and explain all the different types of beliefs and traditions. But really, in a nutshell, and summarising what things like the online dictionaries and Oxford Dictionary and everything says, is really a pagan is anybody who has a belief in something other than the mainstream religions, such as Catholicism, Christianity, Jewish, Muslim, all these mainstream religions which we see in modern day society. Anything outside of that, apart from obviously atheist, really falls under the term of pagan. Now, generally, we tend to use the term pagan and relate to people who have more nature-based beliefs. They believe more in the forces of nature. They can believe in various gods and goddesses. They don't have to believe in gods and goddesses, although they do believe in things like source energy and the energies that surround us. So we tend to be very, very nature-based people, and really this is our belief system. And like I say, there are many, many different beliefs and traditions which come under paganism. We've got the neo-paganism, which is the more modern form of pagans today. Of course, things like Wicca, stuff like this all come under neo-paganism. And then we've got the old style paganism, which obviously our ancestors believed in. And it comes from all over the world as well, from the Egyptians, and predating these guys, the Mayans, all this. So paganism is a really, really wide and diverse subject. But the easiest way to think about it is that paganism is your spiritual side. It's what you truly believe in. And the beauty about paganism, like I say, is we do not have one book, because being a pagan means you become self-empowered. By letting go of the conditioning, which we've all been subject to through education, our peers, schooling, and general mainstream media, and also obviously due to the ridicule that pagans and witches went through, you know, with the burning times and the persecution and everything else. A lot of people are quite misled by what a pagan actually is. But a pagan is usually an earth-based belief system, and I would refer to it as a religion. So if you think of paganism as a religion, but your diversity is great within that. Now, depending on your own personal views on this, your own personal beliefs, you could come into paganism and just be a general pagan in terms of what you feel a pagan should be, i.e. very nature-based, very grounded, and also very spiritual. Or you could start following the different types of traditions which come under paganism. That in itself, in terms of paganism, starts bringing in the witchcraft side of life. Okay, so let us now talk about witchcraft. What is witchcraft? And again, a lot of people tend to be quite confused about witchcraft, because they automatically associate it with paganism. And this isn't entirely true. Although the two do work very, very close together, what we tend to find is people start learning about witchcraft, which in itself is just as it says. I'm a witch, and it is my craft. It is a practice. It's an art of magic. All right. As people start learning about witchcraft, very often they will move away from the mainstream religion beliefs. Now, it is perfectly acceptable for witches to believe in mainstream religions. You can have Christian witches, believe it or not, Catholic witches, Jewish witches. These are perfectly acceptable because it is a craft, it's an art form, it's your practice. A lot of the traditions in paganism itself would determine how you work within the craft. Okay, but it is a separate thing. But like I say, what tends to happen is people become interested in witchcraft, they become interested in the magic side of it, they feel drawn towards it. And as they start following and learning the various practices within witchcraft itself, they start seeing the truth behind everything. And this then leads them usually to start questioning the mainstream religious beliefs that they already have, and then start opening up and moving more into pagan style belief systems. Okay, so we must understand that witchcraft is, just as it says, it is a craft. It's something you learn over a period of time, and again it's self-empowering, and witchcraft and paganism do come to work together very, very well, but they are their own two separate entities in many ways. However, as we'll see, especially with neo-paganism, which is a more modern style of paganism today, the lines are very, very blurry. If any sort of lines or boundaries exist between the two, they've more or less been eradicated, and so the two really mean exactly the same, which of course they aren't at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to witchcraft, everything is based on you as an individual. The magic that you work comes from within you. You need to be self-empowered and on your way to being self-enlightened. Your views, your opinions, your beliefs will determine how the craft works for you. Of course, some people can just go out and they will purchase spell kits online and hope that they work, but the true witch learns to use magic, and very much we become a conduit or a filter for that magic to work. And a lot of that will depend again on your actual belief system, your thought process and everything else. So it does get quite complicated, and like I say, a lot of that is based on the traditions you may or may not be following. For example, if you're doing a spell, a healing spell, you may call on certain deities, gods, goddesses, spirits, all this to help with that, and it acts as a form of focus for you. But that really comes again based on the traditions that you may or may not believe in. One of the beautiful things about paganism, which I find the beauty of it is all about you as a person. We do not need to sell paganism. So unlike a lot of these mainstream religions where we see them stood on street corners, these young guys in a very smart suit with a big name badge in case they forget the name, a satchel on the back holding the Bible saying they will save you, or these people which really annoy you and knock on your door on a Sunday morning and try and give you a copy of the Tower, the Black Tower or whatever. Okay, we don't need to do that within paganism, because all pagans have felt a calling or a drawing to it. Now, it may be that you have been brought up in a family that is already pagan. They may be practicing witchcraft in certain ways. It may be linear. It comes through your relatives. It's in your bloodline. Or you will feel a calling towards it. And these callings, or this drawing, is very unique to everybody. And I really don't want to go into too much about describing this, because again, it can be judgmental in the way it comes across. Because if I explain how it happened to me, you might be saying to yourself, well, I'm feeling it, but I'm not feeling the same as the guy in the video says, so does it mean this or does it mean that? No, a drawing, you feel compelled towards something. Normally you will feel a confusion towards your current beliefs. Something isn't quite right, something is not balanced, you feel out of sync, and so on. And so you start exploring and looking for something else. And again, one of the most difficult things when people do start out in witchcraft and paganism is really they feel quite awkward about going against their current belief systems. Mainstream religions use fear in order to sell themselves. we've all heard the tales, where little children are told, well, you must pray every night, or, you won't go to heaven, all this lot. And even the Christian church and Catholicism and stuff like that, they even took one of our gods and turned it into a devil and said this devil will come out and they will have you and take you away and everything else. And they've used fear to draw you in and believe in that certain religion. They're like corporations, really. And that's what mainstream religions are today. They're nothing more than corporations with a slightly different face on them. But paganism is something that a person is drawn to personally. And especially at the moment, we're going through a very special period of time in terms of evolution. Many people refer to this as the shift or the awakening. And it is a time when on our planet, within our solar system, we're moving into another part of the universe which is very, very energetic. And so we're going to start to awaken to this. Now, what this shift or this awakening is leading to is people becoming more aware. They're realising there's something very, very wrong with the world we live in. All the conspiracy theories which have been out there are really coming to light now, where we start looking at things like the New World Order, Agenda 24 and all this lot. Now, they're things for you to go and research, but when you look behind the scenes, you can really start to see there is a very evil agenda behind everything, and people are starting to feel this. And also the fact nowadays with modern technology, we can find out a lot more stuff in terms of knowledge by going online and reading about stuff and everything else. And so we're more informed as people. And as people start to realise that there's all these hidden agendas, our governments aren't really in control, how much we're being suppressed, conditioned to think a certain way, the more out of balance people become. And they're starting now to turn back inwards to the older ways. Also, science is starting to show, in terms of many aspects, in terms of witchcraft and the craft itself, that witches have always used the energies surrounding them, natural energies, earth energies, and now more than ever, with physics especially, we're starting to see there's actual evidence and truth behind this now. So again, people are moving into this more than anything else. So where do you get started? Well, to start off with, my own personal advice, and this is my own personal opinion, is first of all, before you go running in buying loads of books and everything else, is to start to listen to yourself. Start learning to meditate. That's one of the best things. Just sit down and relax. But then, once you've got into the practice of doing this, start asking yourselves questions. Why do you feel a certain way? Why do you feel drawn to paganism and in particular witchcraft? What is it behind the scenes that is making you feel this way? And you've got to learn to listen to yourself and allow yourself to be guided. By all means, obviously go online. And as we're going to be producing over the next couple of months here on Witchcraft UK, we're going to be interviewing people from different traditions so they can explain those traditions and those belief systems to you. And you can get a first-hand account of what it's like. Yes, you need to research these because some you're going to be more drawn to than others. Some you will look at and you won't be interested in them at all. But really find out who you are. Now, I would say to start off with, really want to go down more of a solitary path, eclectic path. So you've got the freedom to move around, the freedom to breathe, and the freedom to look and to practice different things. You will know yourself when something starts to feel good, when something feels right. And likewise, if you start following or practicing certain things in certain traditions and it doesn't feel right, you don't seem to be getting anything back in terms of that, then that may be not the right path for you. You will be guided on the right path, and you know this inside. It's just a case of listening. Within witchcraft itself, start looking at the various practices. Okay, you may want to start doing divination, healing, working with crystals, spell casting. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's very broad. Again, have a go, have some practice with all of it, because you will feel a natural pulling towards certain things, and you find you'll have natural gifts to certain areas. Now, again, a lot of people turn around and say, well, is it better to join a coven, or as some people pronounce it, coven? And again, I would say, yeah, that's a really, really good way to get started, because providing it's a genuine coven and it's a well-organised coven, you'll be assigned a mentor. And again, depending on that coven's traditions and their own personal workings within the coven, providing you follow the system that they teach and your mentor gives you, it's typical that a year and a day from when you first join the coven that you will be initiated into the coven itself. The only thing I will say about covens is make sure you always do your background work and your background checks first. Just like anything else, from any religion, any belief system, or in fact anything, some covens will use the front face of paganism or witchcraft, and behind the scenes there is more sinister intentions, and things like cults can arise and people can find themselves trapped into it. So yes, a coven is a great way to get started. You're going to be assigned a mentor who will teach you everything you need to know, and provide it's well organised and run, you'll be doing it in a safe environment, and it takes out a lot of the guesswork. But also they can be a little bit restricting, because what will happen is you'll be indoctrinated into a certain tradition. And that's where you have to think. Just like with doing it off your own back, you need to try certain things, you need to experiment, and you need to ask yourself, does it feel good or does it feel bad? The other thing which I want to mention just here is really good and bad. Yes, witchcraft has got a bad stigma against it. It's not bad. But what you must understand and realise here is, in order to be positive, in order to work good, you have to have a balance. Yes, there is a dark side. Yes, there is a negative side to witchcraft. And you need to understand these. And there may be times, I hope there isn't, but more than likely will be, when you do need to look at the darker aspects of the craft. It is all about balance. If people are going to come along and tell you you can only be a white witch and you've got to think positive, you've got to remember that the truth is always subjective. Good is always subjective to you and your own personal perceptions. What may be good for you and what may seem right for you may be bad and seem wrong to somebody else. It's personal perceptions. So when people come along and say, oh, there's a white witch, there's a black witch, really we're all grey. Okay, if we're to take it seriously and work within the craft seriously, we need to understand both sides of the fence. So don't be afraid to explore the darker sides and look at it. I'm not promoting that. I'm certainly not promoting that. But you do need to understand them in order to protect yourself. For one, you need to understand them so you can have balance. And again, this is what it's all about. When you're working with energy, you've got to have that balance. And if you ignore one side of it and one aspect, you're not going to have that balance. Now, I hope this has sort of explained things in a little bit more detail for you. I appreciate there are people out there who, you know, as I get messages saying, can you just tell me a good book to read? No, I can't offer that, because what may be a good book to me might not be a good book to you. But you will find a lot of books are very biased towards certain beliefs or certain traditions. And that's very difficult. Paganism is your spiritual side, and you have to find that path. Yes, look at the traditions, learn about the traditions, look at history, learn about history, so on and so forth. But it's down to you. If you are not 100% behind something, then you're not going to put 100% into it, and you certainly won't get 100% out of it. So if you start following a certain tradition and practicing that tradition, it doesn't feel quite right, you're going to meet resistance, which is going to block you from moving forward. The idea is you've got to learn about these and open up to them. Well, thank you for watching this video. I hope it's helpful, and please feel free to email me if you have any questions. Thank you.